Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of my new channel, where I will go into detail about monsters and other fun creatures and how you could run them. For the first episode, we're going to start with one of my favorite lower CR monsters, the Nothic. A ghoulish creature who, according to the Forgotten Realms lore, used to be wizards who spent their lives searching for secrets in the arcane, but were cursed by the Archlich Vecna. They characteristically have a gargoyle-like stance, and their most striking feature is the single yellow eye that takes up most of their face. Due to their past of searching for arcane secrets, they often make their dwellings in dark places where they believe magic can be found, and they often covet magical items, even small trinkets, in order to dissect their powers and understand them. With this background information in mind, we can now look at their stat block and dive into how they fit in the world around them, and how an encounter might look in your game. The stat block for the Nothic can be found on page 236 of the Monster Manual. They are a medium aberration with a neutral evil alignment. It has a fairly average armor class at 15 and an average health pool of 45, which puts it around the middle of the pack for CR2 monsters, and could make an interesting dungeon boss for a low-level party. Its stats favor the physical with a +2 in strength, a +3 in dexterity and constitution, a +1 in intelligence, a +0 in wisdom, and a -1 in charisma. These all fit pretty well, but if you feel the need to tweak them, having it utilize some of its hoard of magic items would make sense to balance out a fight before the party arrives. It has the skills Arcana, Insight, Perception, and Stealth, which help build into its observant nature and could really test a more cautious party. True Sight can help build up the atmosphere of an encounter, which mechanically could help set the ominous tone of entering one of these creatures' lairs. With the right amount of magical darkness, even those pesky adventurers with dark vision will be hard pressed by the feeling of being watched. It offers a great mechanical aspect to your descriptions of twisted arcane magic that will help set the mood of the encounter and level it up that much more. The Nothic has one ability called Keen Sight. This offers advantage on perception checks that rely on sight. The Nothic has three actions, the first being a multi-attack for its claws. It has a range of 5 feet and hits for a d6 plus 3 slashing damage. This twice allows it to help even the odds of going it alone against a party of level 1 to 2 PCs. The next action is Rotting Gaze, where the Nothic stares at a creature within 30 feet of it, and with a failed DC 12 con save, deals 10 or 3d6 necrotic damage. Rolling above average on this could put PCs into death saving throws, so make sure if you use it you know what the consequences will be. Personally, if the party enters a fight like this underprepared, there should be consequences for doing so and not turning back. Running should almost always be an option. Their next action is called Weird Insight, which calls for a PC deception roll versus the Nothic's Insight roll to determine whether or not the Nothic learns something about the PC. This is something that would be more useful in a roleplay scenario between the Nothic and the party instead of combat, which would allow the Nothic to potentially manipulate or draw on party members' fears to gain an advantage in a fight, or simply to pool more information into its arcane archives. Now that the stat block has been explained, we can look into strategies, lairs, hooks, and loot a potential Nothic may have. Firstly, your Nothic should want to avoid combat, whether by hiding and observing or by negotiating with the party. Maybe your Nothic has been spying on bandit leaders in the area and has extracted some useful information about their next heist and is willing to trade it for your paladin's magic ring. Whatever the case, they should be docile until they are clearly in for a fight, in which case they should prioritize protecting their valuables. To a Nothic, their items are the most important thing in the world, oftentimes believing that there might exist a cure to their curse, driving them further to madness searching for it. That brings us to their lair. Often they will find a refuge in some place that has three things: food, water, and magic. Somewhere like a busy city sewer underneath an esteemed library, or a cave near a farm and a wizard's guild. They will probably have some hidden crevice where they stash their valuables, as well as many places to hide from intruders. You can get really flavorful with this, as it helps add to your world in the encounter, with small holes bored into the walls of a cave where it spies out from, or odd magical effects in the area that are affected by the creature's presence. For example, in the Lost Mines of Phandelver adventure, the Nothic that resides in the Red Brand hideout has a small ravine which magically slows down the decomposition of creatures within, allowing it to store food for longer periods of time. Whatever you decide to make your Nothic's lair, make sure that it has a reasonable way for it to satiate all three of the basics a Nothic would want. For an adventure hook, maybe your party travels to a small town where a farmer is paying lots of gold to hunt down whatever is killing his chickens. For our party, it seems like easy money, and asking the farmer, he says, it seems like a fox of some sort and is burrowing into his run and snatching them away, further lowering their guard. When they track the prince to the cave the Nothic resides in, that's when you can start laying out the ominous atmosphere the creature brings into the world. A supernatural darkness fills the inside of the cave, so much so that even your torches cannot light up 10 feet in front of you. Really grind out the five senses, which I've found to be incredibly potent for igniting some of my adventurers' imaginations, which helps draw them into the story. What would the lair of a Nothic smell like? Can they hear anything further into the cave? Does the air have a foul taste? Using your imagination to fill in the blanks for these sensory details will help complete any encounter you can come up with. Nothics are hoarders, and their lairs should resemble that. Piles of bones from old meals, strange markings on the walls where rituals and notes have been inscribed, and other odd collections should differentiate this place from a typical animal's lair, and highlight the insanity of the Nothic residing within. Their most important possessions, however, should be a magical object or potion that they focus their energy on understanding. Using the Nothic in the Lost Mines of Phandelver again, his treasure chest contains a +1 longsword, a scroll of augury, and a potion of healing, as well as various coins. This is perfect for a Nothic that would be encountering low-level players, because if they defeat him, it isn't too much to make them overpowered, but just enough to make it not underwhelming. You can tweak this to fit your players as well. For example, you could substitute the sword for a longbow if your party has a ranger, and get rid of the scroll for another potion, or vice versa, depending on the prominence of your Nothic and their interests. I would say to focus more on scrolls and potions rather than weapons, because Nothics were once wizards, so a sword wouldn't necessarily interest it as much as a scroll would. An example of a Nothic's loot could be a ring of water walking, a scroll of darkness, and a potion of climbing, as well as maybe a few hundred gold pieces. It is totally possible to swap coins for potions or scrolls, and when doing so, make sure you account for how long your Nothic has been active to determine its wealth. Overall, the Nothic is a fairly simple creature to implement in your games as long as you hit these main points. Their lair should have access to the big three in a Nothic's world: food, water, and magic. It should also have a reason to be there, such as being nearby a wild magic well or an ancient library. The location can be just about anything, from a cave or dungeon or even under a bridge. The most important part is to make it feel natural, and to give the creature a purpose in the world. For example, he could act as an obstacle to travelers, but due to the versatility of the Nothic, maybe he was also hired to spy on potential usurpers by a paranoid noble. You can get pretty wild, and the one thing you always need to remember is to have fun making it. If something isn't working for you, change it. Nothing is set in stone until the party sees it, and even then, it's not too hard to retcon certain aspects after the fact. Remember to not procrastinate and make your game great.